Hello. Hello and welcome back to Riding with Witches. I can never do an intro smoothly. That's
It's
the
all
that's
right.
the hot take tonight. Um as you can tell, our podcast Riding with Witches, you are listening to us talk about riding and we're both witches. So I think our podcast title sums it up pretty well.
Yes, very
Um
succinct.
my name is Leona Urbanski. I am an author with a novel coming out beginning of next year. And my co-host is
I am Nicole Autumn. I am the author of the Secret Society series, which currently has 3 books published, and the last one is to come out hopefully the end of this year. So, fingers
Yay,
crossed.
right?
Yeah.
Um, just in case you've seen this podcast before, yes, I'm in a different spot because we finally figured some stuff out 2 weeks before I move. So that's why normally these shelves are very full. They are not right now. What you don't see are the piles of boxes around me currently. That is also why I look like absolute shite because Nicole messaged me. She's like, "You ready to film?" I was like, "Tape, tape, tape, tape."
Shit. Oh my gosh. But you don't look
So
like shit. You
we'll
look
just
good. You
say
look fine.
we'll just say tonight I'm repping Jonathan Young and Caleb Hiles. So we'll
There you
just
go.
go with that. We'll do their call out tonight. Um, do you have any book news besides coming out later this year?
Other than that, not really. Just that I'm doing revisions, which is the topic of this episode.
I know. I wish I could. I've been a little bit busy. This has kind of got
Yeah.
put on the back burner for me, unfortunately. I guess the only news I have really is I'm moving ahead with my cover design though. My artist is doing really awesome work, and we're gonna have a special surprise about that artist at the end of the episode for you. So stay tuned on that. Um, but yeah, I didn't get to show you the latest concept art. We're working on getting the actual magic when she's doing her piece on the cover. So I'm excited about that.
Ooh, that's exciting.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's really all I have.
And well, since we're talking about design, the cover for yours, I actually had a meeting with her, was it this morning? On Zoom.
Nice.
And we have now picked the character art for mine. And now she's going to be like really drawing it out now for me. So hopefully, she said
Sweet.
roughly done by the end of the month. So I'm like, sweet.
Awesome. Yeah, I think mine's gonna take a little longer because we're doing the full
Yeah.
print book wrap. So we're doing the front cover now, then she's gonna work on the spine, and then we're gonna work on the back cover, which will have the three brothers on it. So I'm excited to see the boys.
That's so exciting.
I know you are too. I know who you're excited to see.
Yes.
We all know who Nicole's favorite is in this book, the
Yes.
dumbass.
I
So,
can't help it. He's just charismatic. I love him.
oh, he knows it too.
Oh, he's so full of himself.
Lovely. Anyway, so
So,
yeah, today we are talking about revisions.
yeah, which we are both in the thick of it at the moment.
Yes. And one point that I made sure to put on the outline, and I think you agree with this, is we need to make sure we kind of distinguish the difference between what we consider revision versus what we consider editing.
Yeah.
Because there is a difference.
Yeah. I know I'm really bad at saying, oh, I'm editing, when in reality, at this point, it is revisions, but I just broad overarching, I always say editing for some reason. But yes, there is a difference between the two. I just suck at using the right word.
I mean, to be fair, you're not the only one that kind of clumps it together. It's just straight up less syllables to say editing than revisioning is. I don't know if it
Yeah.
is or not. It's harder. There's a V in there. It makes it harder, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just easier to say editing.
Yeah. So
So,
when it comes to revisions, it's more so story based stuff, right? Like we're looking at reworking stories and trying to find plot holes, adding and subtracting scenes, which Unfortunately, I have found that a lot of my chapters don't work. um, so, yeah, revisions is story based fixing.
Yes. Editing is the technical stuff. So, we're gonna go into more detail on that in a few minutes, but it's more like s- the typical spelling, grammar, but also a few other technical aspects of it. So, to us, the difference between editing and revisions to me is more the abstract, wider picture, big picture type of um, work with the story versus editing is more the granular, technical, fine-grained stuff, like replacing this word with another word because it sounds better versus replacing this scene with a different scene because it works better, kind of thing.
Yeah,
So, so revisions, all things story based. What are we looking for?
that's the rough part. Because
It is the
with,
rough part.
like, so for me, it is, like you said, it is the broader picture. It is the story itself, not the technical things. And this is where, for me, I'm adding a lot because when I write my first draft, it's very, he does this, she does that, they do this, they go here, they go there. Like, it's very action based. So sometimes you're having to add in those emotions. You're still very much writing at this point. It's not just as simple as, you know, fixing, like you said, the technical stuff with editing, grammar, sentence structure, and stuff like that. So, and sometimes that means reworking a lot of stuff. So, it takes a long time to get those little pieces just right.
Yeah, and it's, like you said, sometimes you are adding and sometimes you are subtracting and sometimes you are being I was just working on one of the short stories and I had
Mm.
written two different endings for a chapter and I was asking Nicole, I'm like, which one do you think would fit better here? And she's like, well, I love this scene because it's very cute. It just doesn't fit with the way I've portrayed the character so far. And so yeah, it's looking back and you're like, this is where I would love it to be and for it to
Mhm.
wind up eventually, but it's not the right timing in the story for that to happen. So
Yeah.
I went with the other ending, which was less cutesy, but more accurate to the character. So it's saying, is this lining up with the character growth? Is this lining up with the plot and the story to where you're going to be setting it up to get your payoff later in the book? Like you don't want to. And another thing, actually, that kind of is a link for me is also most authors consciously do foreshadowing during their revisions because now you
Yeah.
know where the story is ending up. So now is when you can go back and you can be adjusting characters' words, characters' tones. Did you find out at the very end of the novel they were keeping this huge secret that you didn't know they were keeping at the beginning of the novel? This is where you go back and you can kind of adjust that character's tone so when the readers get to the end of the book, it's not like they just got sideswiped by a semi, You're
Yeah.
you've put enough hints and foreshadowing in that so this is the time for that. This is when you can you know who the characters are now after you've done this first draft. You know their motivations, you know where they're going to end up, you know the path. So you can go back and you can start putting the little road signs up for the reader to follow so that they can be like, "Oh, that tracks." And
Yeah.
it's not just getting, as I said, sideswiped by a semi when something comes out of the blue because back to the short story I was just talking about, I didn't know that this character had this huge secret, and I'm just telling Nicole, I was like, "Oh, I'm doing this scene reveal," and she's like, "She had a secret?" And I'm like, "I guess
Yeah.
I need to go back on that one."
I was like,
So
wait a minute. You were pulling a fast one on me.
this is why I should not be a serial author because this short story is fast becoming a novel.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. Also to the point that you were saying, with when you were talking about the short story. This, because you've written your first draft, like you said, you know who these characters are. when you're writing that first, I would say the first 10 chapters, sometimes the knowledge of your characters are a little shaky, right? Like you said, you know their motivations now, what makes them tick. So it also can mean they may have made choices in the beginning that may not align with who you believe they are to be at the end. So you can go back and say, okay, yeah, at the beginning they made this choice. I just, now that I know my characters in the story, I don't think they would do this. So you can go back and rework those things. And like I said in the little intro, the first 6 chapters of my book feel so out of place. So at this point, I'm like, shit, I have to now take those 6 chapters out and rewrite them to make the flow better, which is also another thing. The pace of the first 6 chapters was slow. So freaking painfully slow. So that is another thing that you can look at fixing is the pacing. Is it dragging? What can you add in that could pick it up, make it a little more exciting for the reader, or, you know, maybe you do want to give them that curveball. So I think this is a good time to fix pacing because when we're writing, we're not really thinking about that. We're just getting it out. Or maybe things are
Mhm.
happening too fast, right? Like at the end of my book, Leona has read the rough draft and she was like, the ending happened very abruptly. And I'm like, you're right. So this is a good time to really look at your pacing, in my opinion, to just really make sure everything is flowing nicely and it's not too fast, too slow. It's just right.
It's taking the two analogies of depending on what the story is, either putting some flesh on its bones so it's not as abrupt, or it's trimming the fat if you have too much going on. So you can get
Yeah.
it down to that right pacing and the right um especially when it comes to those kinds of scenes, because admittedly the scene that I was talking about specifically in the rough draft of this last book for Nicole, it was supposed to be a fast-paced scene. And
Yeah.
I totally got that, but at the same time, I was like, we need just give us a little more.
Just a
So
smidge more. Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, pacing is definitely a and and to be fair, revisions, you're gonna do revisions more than once. You may be doing it piecemeal, you may be doing it all at once at the same. I'm literally rewriting the whole book. We'll get into that more again later, but um that is something to definitely think about is making sure your pacing is kept consistent across the book. So even if you are doing a piecemeal, then I think doing a regular reread when you like finish a section, or at least making sure that it's book ended correctly, kind of thing, is an important piece of it. But I think I'm getting ahead of us, so I'll stop.
No, you're fine. But the other thing is, going back and if you let your work marinate, like we said, going back, you are more likely to find your plot holes. So in revisions, finding those plot holes, you now have the opportunity to go back and fix them. And there's been a big author lately that has come out, had their book come out, and it is very obvious at their lack of revisions and editing. So take these opportunities to really sit down and flesh out your revisions to make sure that your story works. um, and those plot holes, adding things, pacing, all of that adds up into the revisions. And that's what ultimately will make your book read really well is in the revisions.
Yeah, it's for and this stage of the game, you can fall into the trap of you can always do something better, so you do have to watch yourself with that,
Yeah.
and not let yourself fall too hard into that trap. But at the same time, you have time, presumably, if this is your first draft, if your
Yeah.
first debut novel, you have the time to do these revisions correctly, so let yourself take that time to do it, and to do it right, and do your work justice, I guess is a way of saying it.
Yeah. I think that would just push us into editing then.
Yeah, that sounds about. I mean, editing is kind of cut and dry, honestly. It's very
Yeah.
dry. Editing is very dry. Uh,
Yes. But there's a lot of things to consider when you are doing the editing, and it's very tedious work. It's not fun. You're not fixing story stuff. You're looking at the grammar, the spelling, the sentence structures, you know, um, your tone, voice, all of these things are coming into play. And again, it may be you go through and you check just grammar, spelling, and sentence structure. And then you may do another pass, making sure all your words are in the right tense. Because I've seen that happen and I've fallen victim to it where you're writing and, one thing you're writing in first person present tense and next thing you know it's first person past tense and you're like, whoa, 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 what happened? Where did we go wrong here? So checking your tenses and making sure they're aligning to what your story is supposed to be, and also correct point of view. I don't see this as often where people start confusing point of view with first and third, but you will see it with first and second, where you're talking I, me, my, and then all of a sudden you throw out a you. Like you're talking directly to the reader and you're like, whoa, whoa, I'm not in this. So also, writing in that correct point of view and just making sure everything lines up. Again, very tedious work.
well, and on the point of view thing, I've definitely agree with you. Sometimes it can slip from first to second.
Hmm.
And you're right, not very often that I see. I have seen one author on me that went from first to third, and I was like, whoa, what? But a lot
Yeah.
of times, what you will see, yeah, it was a little crazy. What beta reads, right? Anyway,
Oh, yeah. Those are fun.
um, third person, a lot authors, third person is kind of the default when you start writing, honestly, to me anyway. And but one thing that I try to keep in mind with my writing is I try to, while it is third person, it is an omniscient narrator. I'm still trying to keep it limited to the knowledge of one character. So like in Fire Magic, the bulk of the book is narrated by from Brenna's point of view. There's like a few snippets within the main book itself that you've switched over to another scene that's with a different character's point of view. And then I have little interludes where it is way off, away from Brenna. But one of the things I had to do was not constantly switch back and forth. It's like I had two characters that were meeting for the first time, Brenna and Carrie. I started the scene with Brenna, and you didn't see this because you read this after I fixed it.
Oh, okay.
I started the scene with Brenna, and then I switched over to Carrie's point of view. So we basically switched perspectives, like in a movie, from one to the other. When I was trying to keep it consistently of a limited knowledge to a point with Brenna, like she didn't know who Carrie was, she didn't know who his brothers were at the time, she didn't know why he was there, and I was trying to keep the reader in Brenna's frame of mind. So switching back and forth in the third person point of view is something you have to kind of watch depending on what your goals with it is. Because my goal was to keep the reader only knowing what Brenna knew. So I had to keep it to her point of view. I felt there were some scenes that were important enough that you did need to know from another point of view. But within third person, that's something to definitely think about and to watch for. If you're doing it on purpose, great. But if you're trying to set up kind of a unreliable narrator like Brenna is, then you need to make sure you're watching in third person which character is narrating for you.
That makes sense.
So that's
Yeah.
very long explanation about point of view there. Sorry.
No,
Uh
you're good, but I mean, it is something to watch for when you are doing your revisions and editing because like you said, I mean, I most often I've seen first to second, and again, it's you're reading I, me, my, oh my gosh, this is happening to us, and then oh, but did you do this? And I'm like, wait a minute, when did I become part of the story here? Like, what? So
got a quote.
yeah. So, you know, that it is something to keep in mind, and I think tenses also is another one that people slip up on, and you are writing in past tense. I don't like writing in past tense unless it is something that has already happened. So like literally you've read it already. But even I will sometimes slip up and I start writing with eds at the end of my actions, and I'm like, wait, what happened? So that's another one that can cause some trip ups, is making sure everything's in the correct tense.
And you would think that if you would think as you're reading through it, that as you're trying to edit, if you don't notice it, your reader isn't going to know. No, they will, because it's going to really jar the reader. So it is definitely something that you want to keep an eye out for and make sure you're staying in a consistent tense. And I'm actually really horrible about that. I
Yeah.
will switch back and forth between past and present really badly. It's plagued me since college. I try to fix it. I don't always succeed though.
Yeah.
So
It happens.
even when you've been writing for a long time, you will have your bits and pieces that you will always fail at.
Yeah. Um Also, I guess this kind of goes between both revisions and editing, which is tone and your voice. Because, with your revisions, you're like, okay, we know what's happening now. So I know what tone and voice I want to have portrayed. And with editing, you get to make sure that that is lining up specifically with how your sentences are being written, and the wording that you use, and just the technical things of where are the commas going, because sometimes, you know, you can read a sentence as is and you're like, okay, but you're like, but I need them to have a pause here for dramatic effect, or an M dash, because I know people love M dashes, or even an ellipses out of there somewhere. I do love me ellipses more than an M dash, I will say that. Doot, doot, doot.
Yep.
Yeah. So those are what help set the tone and the voice of your characters and how they are trying to portray their message. And that comes down to the technical bits.
So I agree entirely. I'm not disputing anything that you're saying. I am going to jump on our at least once per episode soapbox here. AI.
Yeah.
Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. Oh, I'm just going to put it in and it can correct technical errors. Here's the thing that I'm going to come at this from a different point of view. And it's not that you shouldn't rely on a machine to do this. I use the spell check in Word. I use the grammar check in Word. I'm not saying don't do that. What I am saying is anything you put through AI to check and review for you is getting fed into their training machine, which means someone else, AI, for those of you that don't actually know what it does not generate original thought. It goes out and it plucks pieces from its training database and clobbers them together for you. And that's what you're seeing. It
Yeah.
looks coherent. It's not. It's cobbled together from, there was a big uproar a couple of months ago. There were thousands of books. I think it was Google that did it, ran through their database for training AI. What I'm telling you is if you voluntarily, even not voluntarily, run your book through AI, even if it's just, checking for grammar, checking for tone, checking for tenses, it's getting fed into their machine and it's going to be getting pooled for other people's answers.
Yeah.
So, you know how some people are like, oh, go get a random story prompt? Guess where those random story prompts are coming from? Your stuff that you're feeding into the machine. So if you
Yeah.
want your stuff to stay yours, learn how to edit it yourself.
Yeah.
Or use Word, Microsoft Word, Google Docs if you're doing that, I think has a spell check. I'm not saying don't use spell check. We're all human. We all make errors. Computers make errors too.
Yeah.
But um, be aware of that aspect of AI and be aware if you're feeding it to the machine, it's going to get plagiarized somehow, some way. There's just
Yeah.
eventually. And the people that are plagiarizing it probably aren't even going to know.
Oh no. They don't care enough to look to see if it's plagiarized. I mean, I'm pretty sure someone used like Chat GPT and asked it all these prompts, and the prompts even got left in the book's final edit. Like, it went out to people with the prompt still in there. And I'm
Mhm.
like, if you're gonna be lazy, like I get it, but like that lazy? Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So our soapbox,
and
don't
I
use
mean,
AI.
really and truly, don't use AI. Really and truly, learning the grammar rules, learning the technical skills is going to make you a better writer in the end,
Yeah.
because you're going to be able to make sure that this story is really and truly your own. Okay, I will step off the box now.
And I would also say add on to that is like you said, AI is just spitting out what it's already seen. So when you're writing, depending on how you're writing it and with that tone, that voice, and everything like that, what you may think, okay, this is how I want it portrayed, it may not be technically correct grammatically or sentence structure wise that you're like, okay, that age old, I know the rules so I know when to break them situation. So when you're trying to force a certain tone or voice for your characters in a certain situation, it may not be grammatically correct the way it's writing out. So it may pick up and it may tell you this is wrong. And you're like, but with how I want it said, it's not. So that is also something that you have to keep in mind with AI because, I mean, I use Grammarly. I don't use their AI generative stuff. Um, but it does help with things like, clarity and like, hey, this has too many words in it for what you're trying to say. And I'm like, that's right. Um, so even I get kind of iffy with using Grammarly, I won't lie, because it does have the AI aspect to it, even though I don't use it. But there's been plenty of times where they're like, this is wrong, or is, it should have this extra word in there. And I'm like, no, it shouldn't. That doesn't sound right at all. Like, that's wrong, the what you just said. And then it's funny because if you click on their suggestion, next thing you know, instead of the blue underline, you're getting a red one. You're like, bitch, you just told me that was right. And now you're marking it as wrong. So which one is it? So AI is not as smart as everyone thinks it is. So don't rely on that and with certain things. Sorry if that was a little mumbly. My brain is struggling.
I mean, yeah, definitely with grammar for sure. And I'll be honest, even with spelling, because like I will be writing and I have read enough classical literature that I can put in words that people will still understand without in even Microsoft Word's spelling dictionary is like that's not right. And I was like, yeah, it is.
It is. Yeah.
You are not you do not have the same knowledge base that I do kind of thing. So yeah, it's just like I used a word the other day and I know it's a word, unabashedness. And
Mm-hmm.
normally you see it unabashedly. You can still do it unabashedness. And it was insistent. I was in Microsoft OneNote and it's like, that's wrong. I was like, no, it's not.
You're like, I do believe I am correct. You are just a computer. No.
So yeah, it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Because, I mean, computers and editing stuff is still made by people at the end of the day.
Computers and AI are a tool for you to use,
Yeah.
not things that should be creating what you are consuming.
Yeah.
Straight up. All right, are we
So,
ready to get off the AI soapbox?
yeah. Yeah, if it's not clear enough that we're anti AI, it should be now. Um, but that would bring us into our witchy tip or witchy knowledge that we like to share with you. And this week we're talking about inconspicuous witchcraft. Things that you can do that, one, don't look like witchcraft, or two, no one's going to think twice about it. They're just going to be like, oh, okay. Which, for what my first set was certain jewelry, perfume oils, or lotion sigils. These are all things that a lot of people use for protection, glamour magic, because not all jewelry, yeah, like that's just a crystal. People will look at that, oh, I like that crystal, how pretty. Not everything needs to look super witchy. You don't have to wear a pentagram around your neck or earrings, or, I mean, if you want to and you can, do you. But not everyone feels so comfortable to just put themselves out there like that. And that is a way that you can, I mean, you can enchant it with certain properties, or if it is just a plain pendant, right? It still holds magic if you enchant it. And like I said, perfume oils are another good one. Setting intentions and, you know, putting that just on in a few pulse points. And then lotion sigils are another one that you get out of the shower and you can put sigils on yourself with your lotion and then rub it in. And boom. No one would be the wiser of that situation at all, because you wouldn't see it. So those were those ones that I had.
Yeah, like literally I have rose quartz and I have green aventurine right now.
Yeah.
And anyone that knows crystals knows probably has a general idea of what those are for, but there's just the tree of life on them in different ways, and no one thinks twice about them. No one's ever commented on the fact that I'm wearing two necklaces.
And you
They're
know
just
what's
like, okay,
funny
whatever.
is most people will probably look at those and be like, "Oh, how pretty, those crystals," or they're gonna think, "Oh, well, she's some kind of hippie."
Yeah, probably. I mean, I do kind of tend to fall into that category, to be fair. So,
I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're thinking of things like for house, right? Both of us have horseshoes over our front door. And it's to essentially bring in luck and abundance. So, boom, right above your entryway door, because you want that coming into your life. So, and most people, they may look at that and be like, okay, that's kind of weird, but they're not going to think anything of it. Like I said,
it's a
most think,
well-known thing to do.
yeah, which I mean, it is considered like one of the folk magic things that people can do. So, I mean, I grew up and my mom and my grandma both had kitchen witches, little kitchen witches in the kitchen. I never thought anything of it, and eventually once I got older and started researching, I was like, "Wait a minute." But also candles. We've talked about candles before and how those are very inconspicuous because most people have candles in their house. And crystals, right? Crystals have blown up over the last few years, so having some specifically placed crystals is not going to throw up any red flags. They're like, oh, crystals, you're a witch, you know?
I have the best story about crystals, real quick. I'll be quick about
Okay.
it, right? So I came out as a witch to my family a few years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And two of my siblings were both like, "Oh, yeah, you sure about yada yada yada." And then a few weeks later, I hear one of my siblings is like, "Oh yeah, we're getting a massage done on a crystal bed."
Witchcraft.
Like, do you not know what that is, man? You're just sitting there, like practically accusing me of Satanism because I was practicing witchcraft. You're gonna go do a massage on a crystal bed? What the flip?
No, and
Take
it's so funny.
logical thinking for a second, man.
Yep. I mean, it's even like, oh, like, of course, there's always those people that hear, oh, you do witchcraft, you must worship the devil or something. And I'm like, do you blow birthday candles? Yeah? Witchcraft. And they're like, what? No, that's a tradition. I'm like, yeah, you're
Yeah,
making a
for
wish on
witchcraft.
candles. That's magic. Tooth fairy, magic. So I'm just like, anytime they bring up that stupid stuff, oh, it's witchcraft and you're serving the devil. And I'm like, first off, I don't even believe he exists. But, sure, okay.
I saw on Facebook, I saw someone that I know is a very devout Christian that she's more of an Facebook acquaintance than an actual friend, but I know just from things that she has put on Facebook, if she ever knew that I was a witch, that she would, wait, you're a witch. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Go through this whole paragraph of how she picked out the colors and symbols for her barn quilt, if you know what I'm talking about. They
Yeah.
paint the quilts onto the tops of the barns, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, that's
That's
okay.
protection magic, ma'am.
That's protection.
Yeah, because like I know it's really big,
Yeah.
especially on the East Coast, that they would put those. They're actually called sigils or hex symbols
Hmm.
in certain areas, and it is literally picking certain colors and symbols as protection.
What
Hello.
do you think that is, guys?
It just cracks me up. And like, have you seen the Catholic religion? I mean, you're drinking Christ's blood and eating the body of Christ if that
In his
isn't some
flesh.
heavy symbolism. Witchcraft.
Yeah. Anyway, fun stories for
Yeah.
people that have been witches for a while.
Yes.
Anyway, what was okay? I will stop. Well, what was the next thing on the list?
Other things that you can do that are this one is particularly very inconspicuous. No one is going to question it. Um Planting certain flowers and herbs in certain areas of your garden, outside your house, in your backyard. They're going to see, oh, they're planting. Oh, what a lovely garden. You know, no one is going to think twice when you're putting lavender near your front doors, or if you have sage growing in your backyard, or any amount other freaking herb. I mean, literally the whole kitchen cabinet, you know what I mean? No one's going to think twice. And on that kitchen cabinet is kitchen witchcraft. It is very inconspicuous, right? Doing your magic with your morning coffee or your teas, or making a stew or baking bread. Like, all of these things, certain witchcrafts are very inconspicuous. And I feel like the number one that came to mind when we were talking about doing this was kitchen witchcraft. Because 90% of the herbs that kitchen witches use are literally in the kitchen cabinet.
Well, and I know one of my big things when I do is I'm more of a baker than a chef, and so I bake with intention. That is my witchcraft. I mean, I'm not even necessarily using a lot of herbs. If I'm making a sweet bread or something, or I'm using
Yeah.
cinnamon or cloves, or
Nutmeg.
and I'm one of my main thing nutmeg. I'm baking my intentions into the bread, be it for myself or giving it to someone else, and that's my witch. That's part of my witchcraft anyway. So yeah,
Yeah. And no one
kitchen
can
witching,
see intention,
literally.
you know? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah. Inconspicuous witchcraft is definitely a thing. I mean, obviously, we have things that are very in your face, but there are a lot of ways to practice witchcraft that most people are not going to think twice about if they were to see you doing it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, as I literally look at my altar that has dragons.
I saw you were like, oh, yeah, that is kind of in your face, isn't it?
I mean, at least it's in my bedroom.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're inviting people into your bedroom.
And you have Christine.
I saw that when you sat down, and I was like, a little witchy pooshing.
It's adorable to look at him. He's so
Oh,
cute.
this little crystal ball.
So Cristobal.
That's adorable.
Yeah, I'm not
So,
very subtle.
no. I mean, neither am I.
I know.
I've given up subtlety. I don't care anymore. At my age,
It's
I'm
your house,
like, if
man.
you don't like it, there's the door. buddy. Like,
There's a horseshoe over. Watch out.
you better watch yourself. um, which at that point, that brings us to the end of the witchy tip. Okay.
So, we're doing this part a little different from our normal back and forth because we both have different approaches to revisions. Um, I, I go very hard on a book called The Second Draft by Sandra Scoville. I use a lot of her advice, a lot of her tips in there. If you've never done revisions before, highly suggest you go through, pick out what works for you. Don't pay attention to what she says about doing every single thing because it takes freaking forever. I tried. Don't do it. Um, but ultimately, what I decided to do is I did do definitely some of her notes, like I did the I went through and I picked out all of the backstory. So I have a historical timeline now. I picked out um all of my character introductions, that kind of thing. What I'm doing now, and this is one reason it's taking so long, is I am literally rewriting the book. And one of the reasons that she suggests this is she is an old school author who did start initially writing when you were using typewriter still. You didn't have a Microsoft Word processor that you could just go in and change. So if you wanted to change something, you were literally retyping out the whole page. So that is where this kind of came from. And as we've mentioned in the past, I've done several query letters and no one even asked for the full manuscript. So I said, okay, there's something that needs to change. So I decided what needed to change was the whole book.
The
So
whole
no,
thing.
it's still the same basic book, but I have my laptop in front of me. I'll have I printed out a draft of Fire Magic and I will read the chapter and I will go back and I will rewrite the chapter. And sometimes I come out verbatim for what I wrote before. Sometimes I have a whole different conversation stuck in there. Sometimes I have other things that are happening that I need to add in or change. Like I know, as I've talked to Nicole about before, there's a few different major things that have changed since my initial writing of this book that need to have that foreshadowing put in. Some attitudes from the beginning need to change so that they line up with what's happening at the end of the book. So that is why I'm choosing to go in and I'm literally rewriting the book. I'm just this is the only way to say it. I'm rewriting the book. But so that is how I'm doing it. It is going to take me a long time, which is why I had to move my publishing date back because of all the other stuff happening, as you can see behind me. Um, Is that the best way for everyone? Probably not. There's definitely people that, like me, that have grown up with Microsoft Word, um, and can go back and change stuff. But to me, the warning with that is if you are going in and just changing little pieces at a time, it can make the story very funky. Um, because you might be like, oh, I need to change this. But if you're not changing what's bookending it, and then what's bookending that, and then what's bookending that, you're not doing that ripple effect. Whereas with how I'm doing it, I'm starting from the beginning. So as I'm changing things, that ripple effect is happening as I go through the book. And to me, that is the surest way for these changes that are having to happen in the plot line for it to make sense. Because the other thing that's also happened with this is I've already written the first draft of the second book. Shit happens in the second book that I didn't know about in the first book.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm having to go back and I mean change stuff to accommodate so when the second book comes out, people aren't like, well, what the flip? So that is my approach to revisions is I did a lot of scene writing and comparing to other books, other traditionally published authors or indie authors that I really admire. And I will go back and I was reading scenes to just get a better idea of how to write scenes. Because, I mean, this is technically going to be my first professional novel. Yes, it's been sitting in my head since 2003. That doesn't mean it's been out in the world, though. Um,
No.
so that is my process, and it's a fairly straightforward process, but it is a long and tedious an exacting process. Um, so yeah, that's my process for revisions.
I just want to say, my stomach growled so loud that the actual microphone picked it up. It was like, oh.
Do you need
Sorry. I
dinner,
did.
Nicole?
And that's the thing is, I did eat, and I think it's just like my stomach is just like, okay, we're done breaking this stuff down. It was so loud though.
Just
Um,
letting you know.
yeah. So I do not rewrite everything. That's a lot. Bless you, because I don't have the patience. But I do start at the beginning, right? I go chapter by chapter. I don't just like, oh, I need to add in a little thing here or there. I start at chapter one. First I read through it. I reread everything to make notes and say, okay, look, I need to add this. Like I said, I'm going through my first read through after letting it marinate right now. And I realized those first 6 chapters just are not working for me. I realized that I wanted to try and add more of my world building to this last book and hoping it would work out. And I'm realizing it doesn't. It's going to open up a lot of questions for readers. They're going to be like, okay, well, what the fuck was the point of even going there if it was not going to have any play later on in the book? It was just going to cause too much issues. So I'm realizing it just is out of place. Could it be a separate novella at some point? Possibly, because it is part of this world. And like I said before, if you've watched one of our previous episodes, I would like to have my own little megaverse. So everything is happening in the same universe, right? So those 6 chapters, I'm just like, it's not working. So it has to come out. And I'm realizing that taking notes, at the end, there are 2 characters that start a romantic relationship, and it came out of nowhere. I'm like, whoa. So now I'm sitting here and I'm like, shit, I have to now go back and find points that I can add some subtle foreshadowing and this and that between those two that I'm like, okay, this wasn't here before and this is just out of nowhere, but I got to start adding something in, right? Peppering in some stuff. So once I read through and take the notes that I need to on what I need to add, what I need to get rid of, character, dialogue, all of that stuff, once that's written, I start at chapter 1 and I'm reading and fixing and I go line by line, chapter by chapter. So I'm reading it and fixing things as I go, which fortunately, like I said, the first 6 chapters are just not working. So that's going to be a lot of rewriting for me. So unfortunately, that's just my lot in life with this book. So once I do that, it's very structured on like chronological to make sure everything flows and it doesn't end up getting that clunkiness of, oh, well, this kind of happened, but what about this? Or when you're reading further, you're like, wait, that doesn't make sense now because this one little thing that you fixed earlier on. So I try to do it all in order to make sure everything still flows and makes sense. So that's kind of how I go about revisions. I don't rewrite it and I just do it in my uh what's that word I'm looking for? My writing program.
Processor.
So yeah, it is in order, but I don't rewrite unless everything is just trash. And I'm like, this none of it makes sense, which I did have to do in the beginning, and I still have to rewrite the beginning because I didn't like it the second time. So there's that.
I think one point that both of us agree on, though, is don't worry, focus on revisions first. Leave
Yeah.
the editing, leave the technical, leave the spelling, leave the grammar for after. Because if you're going in and you're trying to edit all of this stuff, And then you're like, Nicole, you find this chapter doesn't even work. You put in all that effort and just to throw it all away. So wait till
Yeah.
you are sure you're done with the major revisions, your story, then go in and start fine tuning with the tenses and the POVs and the spelling and the grammar. Wait, wait. It can get
Yeah.
irritating, and I know I definitely occasionally will actually edit as I do revisions because I'm that person that has been editing for all my life, basically. Um, but I don't go in with that intent of I have to fix everything right now. I
Yeah.
wait until I am finished with revisions. So,
Yeah, because I mean, you're going to do a couple rounds of revisions, right? You're going to go read through, you make your revisions, you're going to read through it again and realize, oh, I forgot this, or I don't really like how this is working now. So you're probably going to do at least, I would say, at least 2 rounds of revisions. And
mhm.
then you're going to do editing. And you're probably going to do 1 to 2 rounds of editing because you're going to read through it and you're always going to find other little tiny mistakes. I mean, we're only human. We're not perfect, which even computers aren't perfect as we've discussed. So don't be so hard on yourself if everything isn't perfect, right? Even publishers, big publishing houses, they pass it through multiple editors and there's still issues. So don't beat yourself up if you don't catch something. It's not the end of the world. At the end of the day, if your story is good and the grammar is mostly right and the spelling's mostly right, no one's gonna like turn their nose up at it. Like they're like, oh damn, that's kind of part of the course,
And
you know?
most people aren't going to turn their nose up at it. I
Most.
know some.
There are some that are, but yeah, I would say multiple rounds of editing, multiple rounds of revisions. It's that's how it's just gonna go.
That is going to be the bulk of your writing. Like you think at first it's writing that first draft. No, it's not. It's the bulk of your writing. The bulk of your time is going to be in those revisions and editing. So
Yeah.
that's not even counting what we're going to talk about later when we talk about beta readers and arcs, and then you have to go back and work with all of those for those. But we'll talk about that later.
Yes, that is a whole other can of worms.
Yep.
So that would bring us to
So
book reviews, which unfortunately I do not have one. Reading has just not happened this week. Fingers crossed I can finish Elven Heartbound next week. Because I just picked up oh my
we still have it
gosh.
sitting here. It's
Yes.
still out here. It's still out.
I just picked up the first book in the Wheel of Time series, which I know we've talked about doing a buddy read for it. So I'm really excited. So I'm like, okay, I got to read Elven Heartbound so I can finish reviewing that. And then I can dive into that one, which I have a feeling you're going to finish far faster than I will.
So special shout out to my brother, who is a huge Wheel of Time fan, because I specifically asked him, I said, hey, I want to do a buddy read with my podcast co-host. Can I borrow the first book from Wheel of Time from you? Do you have a copy that you're okay with me borrowing? He's like, yeah, sure, sure. So I texted him a couple days later. It's like, hey, I didn't know if he'd been able to find a copy or not. And he's like, yeah, let me go look upstairs. A couple days later, I find a copy at my door that he mailed me from Amazon. So shout out
Nice.
to siblings for sending me more books. I love it.
Yeah. He's like, well, maybe I'm just going to get it for you because I want to keep my copy.
Which is totally fair. That's why it's like, is there a copy you're okay with me borrowing?
Yeah, that's totally fair. So, no book review for me, but I gave the little update on what I'm going to read. So, your book review.
So I reviewed this was a book for my online book club called Blood on Her Tongue by Johanna Van Veen. This is way out of my normal review, as I love the sprayed edges on this. Like,
That is pretty
I,
sick.
yeah, awesome. Anyway, um, for those of you that I'm sorry, if you're not watching this podcast, it's literally blood dripping down the sides of the book. Like if you close the cover and the blood was getting squished out of the cover down the sides of the book. It's really they even have like little air bubbles. There's an air bubble on here.
That's
So
awesome.
anyway, um, very much out of my purview, but it was amazing. If you don't like gore in body horror, don't read it. You will
Straight
not
up
enjoy
trigger
it.
warning.
Yep, yep. Um, but I am the person that played Doom by turning on invincibility mode, grabbing the chainsaw and going at it. So I'm fine.
I can see it. I mean, I don't have an issue with gore either. I was playing Dying Light 2 with my husband, and I'm sitting here like listening to Soda Pop while I'm just like bashing zombies in the face, and there's just blood spraying
Play
everywhere, and I'm
rad.
like, yeah.
So okay. This is a vampire novel. So if you like vampires, it's a very different take on a vampire, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and I'm not going to spoil. You should read it though. You will enjoy this.
Okay.
But it's a pair of twin sisters, Lucy and Sarah, and Lucy is kind of the more shadow twin, you know what I'm talking about, or how sometimes there's this one twin that's really dominant and aggressive, and they're the one that you always notice versus the one that's always kind of just trailing behind him kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Lucy is that twin. And she's been getting a letter from her sister Sarah that is just wacky. Like they gave you a copy of the letter in the book. Part of the book was documentation type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like literally the first thing that is written in this letter, I have a blinding pain in my head. I didn't think it was possible to experience such pain and live. I feel like taking a spoon to my eye and scooping it out, 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 out. Anything to make it stop.
Oh,
That
Jesus.
kind of gives you an idea of where we're going with this.
Yeah, this is gonna be dark.
So she gets this letter. So she travels. She's currently living as a companion to an older woman at this point in time. So she travels to see her sister, who is married to a man named Michael. And Sarah just looks like absolute shit. Like just gaunt and not eating and in pain constantly, constant headache. And but one thing that happens, and it's fairly early in the book, so I don't feel like this is giving a spoiler, is that their childhood friend author Arthur, who is also a country doctor, is trying to treat Sarah, the sick twin, and Sarah bites him. Like
Oh.
think rabid dog bite, just clamps into his arm and
Mm-hmm.
starts chewing on him and sucking the blood from his arm. This is just the start, man.
Oh man.
This is just the start. Uh, so I don't really want to give away too much more than that, but it's so gripping, literally and figuratively. Um, there's there's definitely references to Bram Stoker's Dracula. Like she literally has quotes scattered throughout the book from Dracula. Um, And it's also kind of a little bit of a mystery novel because Lucy's trying to figure out how Sarah ended up this way. So you're
Mm-hmm.
kind of going through the documentation on Sarah's desk and reading that documentation to kind of give you a hint on what's going on. Like they go to these archives at one point, so you read this old newspaper article. Um, so it's a little bit of a mystery. Like part three, the mystery gig's pretty much up. You know what's going on, and now it's like, well, what are you going to do about it, kind of thing. But the ending, oh my God. Um, I don't want to give away the ending. I will tell you, it does not go the normal way.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. It you it's a monster. It's a horror novel. It's a monster novel. The monster's ending is not what you normally see.
Okay.
I'm just gonna leave it at that because if I
God,
say any
now
more
it makes
about
me
it,
want to
I'm
go
gonna give
pick it
away the
up
ending.
and read it.
That's the point. That's why I do book reviews. Um,
Yeah.
so very, very good book. Relatively short. I mean, it's only goodness. Let me find the copy that I have. About 339 pages, which for me is relatively short. I read 400 to 500 on a regular basis. So
I feel like that's
very,
pretty
very fast
average.
paced. Yeah, very, very fast paced. Definitely was one of those books that I'm like, shit, I need to go to bed kind of novels. Gives you some interesting dreams. I'll give it that.
Oh
Uh,
man.
my dream journal is a little off that week. Um, so yeah, Blood on Her Tongue by Johanna Van Veen. I apologize if I'm saying that incorrectly. It is JohannaVeen. This is her second book. Her first book was, and I might be picking it up. She talks about it. First book was My Darling Dreadful Thing. Like I don't even know what it's about, and I kind of want to read it just off the title.
Yeah, it does have an interesting title.
I think it's another vampire book actually. Um, but I don't know. So, if you are okay with body horror, gore, vampire in the most primal form,
Ooh.
and it's very descriptive of what exactly happens to people,
Oh geez.
I'd be okay with that. I mean, she actually does. It's not labeled trigger warning, but she does have an author's note. In your hands, you hold a work of gothic horror. It naturally contains terror and rage and other emotional extremes. Uh, this book by virtue of its genre. So yeah, be prepared for a
Yeah,
gothic horror novel that goes all the way.
that sounds it kind of like I said, it makes me want to read it though cuz I mean, I don't read horror all that often if ever. Like I think Dracula was probably the only horror novel I've read besides Goosebump books.
The other thing you'll like about this is there's a hint of smut. It's there.
Oh.
It's not long and it's not overly explicit, but it hits the right notes, man.
You're like, "Oh, it's there when it needs to be." I mean, it sounds good though.
Is very good. I would definitely I highly recommend it to anyone that is able to handle that kind of novel. Definitely worth picking up, definitely worth reading. It is staying in my library if that tells you anything. So, it is not getting relegated to the sell back to the bookstore.
Yeah. Well, that would be the end of this podcast. So you can find us at writingwithwitches.com. We have an email that is writingwithwitches@gmail.com. You can find us at uh, as Writing with Witches on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Blue Sky, and we also have a Discord server. Um, and for me, I also have a website, and it will be linked down below because it is not a nice, pretty URL. And you can email me at author.nicole.autumn@gmail.com. And you can also find me at Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Blue Sky. And I also have a Discord server. I do have a Twitch account. I haven't really been streaming just because my kids are home. So once they are back in school, I'm hoping to do that more often. And our short stories dropped on our website, and you can find that on our writingwithwitches.com website. I have mine up on my personal website as well as my Buy Me a Coffee. So if you would like to read it, it is there and it is available for you.
Okay, you can find me as Leona Urbanski, author on I will have a website. I'm just gonna say go to my link tree, which I will fix eventually. Um, email, website, mainly Instagram and Facebook. You will find my Leo's book reviews on Facebook, WordPress, and YouTube. Also, Leona Urbanski, I do have a Substack. I did officially send out the email for the month of July with one of the concept arts for the cover, as well as a snippet of the first chapter of the rewritten book. So you're getting the latest and greatest from the book. And I will be sending out another email this month, sometime probably middle of the month, with another sneak peek for you. And then I think all that's left is the preview, which we have some exciting news for that, don't we?
Yes, we do. So, next week we are covering book cover design as well as art in general for our books. And we will be having our first guest on the podcast, which is Alexandra Pyfer. She is both of our artists, and she is working on Leona's cover, and she is working on character art for me. So we will get to ask her some questions, kind of nitpick her brain a little bit, and talk about what her process is. And yeah, so that's going to be very,
Yeah.
very exciting.
Yes, we were both looking forward to that, and as looking forward to having her join in on the witchy tip as well. So
Yes, I did forget that point.
it's going to
Yeah.
be nice. Yes, yes, she will be joining us. It's not going to be so much of an interview. She is actually going to just be kind of going our usual back and forth that we go. So
Yeah.
I'm excited.
And just occasionally throw a, hey, what do you do for this situation? Kind
Throw it
of
at her,
fill us
yeah.
in a little. Yeah. So that is the
Alrighty.
end of this podcast. So thank you all for watching or listening. And we hope you guys will come back for our next episode next week.
Bye.
Bye.